This could be huge for the Boston Celtics as Jordan Walsh plays his first game with over 10 minutes in the NBA, and he left a lot of people quite impressed. We have to dive into just how much of a difference maker he could be going forward. Plus, we got some comments from Kristaps Porzingis on head coach Joe Mazzulla, and finally, we got to talk a bit about Derrick White, and one thing that is showing that he might still be the most slept on player in the entire NBA. A lot of fun stuff coming up on this episode of Celtics Digest, and we're just going to get right into it. We got to talk a bit about Jordan Walsh, and this game against the Brooklyn Nets, this was his fourth career NBA game, and of course, the Boston Celtics blowing out the Brooklyn Nets by 50 points. Well, that gave a great opportunity for the Celtics to play some of their young guys. Of course, Payton Pritchard coming out and scoring 28 points, Derrick White with 27, who we're going to get into a bit later. But a lot of people were talking about Jordan Walsh after the game, not necessarily for the offensive performance he put in, because that's not really his game now, is it? But for the defense. There was a bunch of tweets just like this one from Tomek Kordalewski, not really sure. But anyways, the Celtics rookie Jordan Walsh got 18 minutes last night against the Nets. Of course, he went scoreless on 0 for 3 from the field, but he showed nice defensive potential. Walsh is a long, quick on his feet, an active player. Love his relentless approach and hustle, and it's very true. I suggest you go check out this highlight reel, this tweet, or just take a look at some of Jordan Walsh's other stuff, maybe even some of his G League highlights. As you can see here, he's going up for the incredible contest, kind of looking like Daniel Tice with that number 27. Of course, they're very, very different players. But that's the thing. When you watch Jordan Walsh, you see a guy who is out there hustling. He's working his butt off every single possession to prove he belongs. And while, yes, definitely still shaky on the offensive end, that's not really what he's meant to do quite yet in the NBA. Obviously, a lot of Celtics fans, well, a lot of just basketball fans hope that this player, Jordan Walsh, is going to be able to add to his offensive game to really bring a dynamic game to the Boston Celtics moving forward. But his defensive game, especially in a guy who's just in his fourth game, who's never played more than 8 minutes in a single game coming into last night, I thought he put on a very good performance. And it actually reminded me of some quotes from earlier in the season when they played against the San Antonio Spurs about a month ago. So I'm just going to bring those up now because they kind of ring true. Joe Mazzulla was saying how in Maine, Jordan Walsh, like you look at him in Maine and you look at the box score and you see he only had 5 shot attempts, but he guarded the best player the entire game and had 9 rebounds and 6 assists. And for their organization, that's kind of what success is. And then Jaylen Brown talking about the Celtics after they got the win against Wembanyama and company. He said, just getting better, developing. Obviously, Jordan's been down in Maine, but you have been hearing good things. So just seeing him get out there and right away show some signs of improvement, like just get out there, grab 4 rebounds in 3 minutes and 3 seconds in that game. You can see he got some talent and he's just working. And in this game against the Brooklyn Nets, well, he went up to that 4 rebound total. He got 5 rebounds with a steal and a block. And yes, he got a couple turnovers and I think a turnover and some fouls, but it is what it is. He's growing. And at the NBA level, he absolutely did not look out of place defensively. That's the big thing with Jordan Walsh. Now, do I think that he's going to be a contributor for the Celtics maybe on their playoff run this year? No, I don't necessarily think so. And I think with the likes of, Xavier Tillman and Jaden Springer coming in, those are 2 fairly defensive guys as well. Of course, Tillman being geared more towards big men, though I've heard some skepticism on his ability to guard true centers since he's a little bit undersized for that, is what it is. But Jaden Springer is a very versatile defender in his own right, a guy who's gone out there and guarded Steph and Luka, and he can guard any position 1 through 3, even maybe 1 through 4. So I feel like in, a playoff push, you might be more inclined to play Springer, a guy who's definitely not a veteran by any means, but a guy who maybe has a bit more experience than Walsh. You might play him over Jordan, but going forward, if Jordan Walsh can continue to grow his offensive game, he could seriously be a big difference maker for this team, especially in tough playoff series when you can just toss him out there in that kind of what we expect from Jaden Springer, what we expect from a lot of Celtics players, just put him on a great player and exhaust them. Because, if you look at his time in the G League this year, he's no slouch. No, he's not the most efficient player on offense, shooting 42 from the field, 36 from 3. I think it's a 52 or 54 true shooting percentage. But he's averaging 15 and a half points, and he's not afraid to fire the 3 ball. And that's exactly what we want, right? We want Jordan Walsh to get these reps. We want him to play well in Maine, to get those shots up, to develop his game against other pros. And, of course, playing with the Celtics, he's not going to get as many shot opportunities, that's for sure. Look at all the talent on this roster. So I think keeping him in Maine, letting him develop that offensive game slowly, just get those reps up, get those shots up, it's going to help him so much. It's going to help the Celtics so much in the long term. So I know it's maybe not the biggest story coming out of last night's game, but I got to say, when I watched him on the court, it just reminded me of how excited I am for him as a prospect. And I think he's going to be very solid no matter what, even if he doesn't really turn up that offensive game, even if he's just kind of a situational three-point shooter with elite defense. But if he can up his three-point percentage to maybe 38, 39%, and he really learns how to slash a little bit better and is able to get some nice cuts, some nice dunks, and finish in traffic a bit better, this guy could be something special for the Celtics. And I think he's going to prove that we really hit on that draft pick. But enough Jordan Walsh talk. Let's talk about Kristaps Porzingis and what he had to say about Joe Mazzulla. Of course, Joe Mazzulla has been, phenomenal. Now, I see a lot of people still hating on Joe Mazzulla, thinking, it's just the team that's getting this done now. A lot of it does go to the coach. And coaches in the NBA, you can love them or hate them. You can attribute all the success to them or none of the success. It is what it is. A lot of people form their own opinions, but Kristaps Porzingis certainly thinks that Joe Mazzulla is doing a great job. He said, it's easy to not give him credit because of the talent we have, but he deserves a lot of credit. And that sentiment has kind of been reflected in a lot of Celtics players, and I think in some fans too. Joe Mazzulla getting his 100th NBA win against the Brooklyn Nets. He's clearly done a great job. The Celtics are on one of their on pace for one of their best seasons in team history. Jayson Tatum is out there, of course, every night being in the MVP conversation. Derrick White probably going to make another all-defensive team. At least he would if I got my vote. Jrue Holiday, arguably the same thing. It's crazy, right? And Brown is still, maybe he's taken a slight step back, but when you look, well, not from his, skill standpoint, but just from his pure statistics standpoint, because when you bring in a guy like Kristaps Porzingis, some of those shot attempts are going to go over to him, things like that. But all in all, I think an underrated aspect of this is the fact that the Celtics basically have a brand new team this year, right? You get rid of Marcus Smart, a guy that a lot of the people say is he was the heart and soul of the Celtics, and that definitely rang true. Then you bring in Kristaps Porzingis for him, and fans are like, an injury-prone center. They're like, was this going to work? He's good. Yeah, I think a lot of people in a vacuum were happy with that return plus the draft pick. But then you look at Jrue Holiday and you bring him in, and then your bench is not that deep. You kept Al Horford, but Pritchard's probably going to have to play more minutes, and it's kind of, you got Oshae, Brissett, and then Lamar Stevens before he got moved, and there's a lot of weird moving parts. And I think an underrated aspect of what Joe Mazzulla has done is be able to get these guys to play as a cohesive unit. Now, I'm not going to lie, I'm sure a lot of that just lands on the players themselves and their personality and how well they get along. But at the same time, as a coach, you still have to make those play styles work together on the court. Like, you have a good number of ball-dominant guys there. Jrue Holiday, obviously, he's a point guard. Jayson Tatum works arguably at his best in isolation. I don't even think that's really arguable. That's kind of what Jayson Tatum loves best. He loves Kobe. It makes a lot of sense. Jaylen Brown likes some iso ball himself, and Kristaps Porzingis can work really well off of anyone. But again, he's always been one of the primary scoring options on any team in his career. So to get all these guys to buy into the system, to work together so seamlessly, to let some guys have their night. Kristaps Porzingis goes and scores 30, and Jaylen Brown gets like 15 points. Yeah, no big deal. Jrue Holiday maybe only scores 8, but he has 10 assists and plays lockdown defense. Sure. These guys are becoming unselfish, and the way they've all bought into the system, I think that's a lot of props to Mazzulla and the rest of the coaching staff. So I'm not going to spend too much more time on this. I just thought that was a great quote from Porzingis, and it kind of makes you think just a little bit. And the final thing I wanted to talk about today is a bit of Derrick White. Now, I love Derrick White, and if you've been watching the channel, you've seen my videos before, I also am quite a fan of the San Antonio Spurs, but of course, the Celtics are my boys. But at the same time, I've always been a Derrick White fan, right? I've always followed him. He has always been one of these guys that I thought, man, he is underrated. He is underrated. Like, he's going to be good as soon as he goes to another team. And when I saw he went to the Celtics, I'm like, that's perfect. It's time. They're going to use him. Well, it's not the Spurs didn't use him the way he deserved to be used, but he just didn't get the opportunities until maybe his last little bit there. But I saw a tweet from StatMuse today, and I'm going to show you a stat that is kind of shocking. Let's just show it. Derrick White is the only player with 50 steals, 50 blocks, and 100 threes this season. And when you look at that, it's like, okay, but that's kind of insane, right? Derrick White, of course, is known as one of the best, if not the best, shot-blocking guard in the NBA, but he is also lighting it up from behind the arc, and he's stealing the ball at a really, really good rate as well, over a steal a game. That's kind of impressive. You might think, a big man would hold that title. They probably have 50 blocks and maybe a big man who can stretch the floor. Or what about like a Karl Anthony Towns or, something like that? Maybe Jaren Jackson, if he was healthy, he loves to chuck threes, doesn't he? But no, it's just Derrick White. It's not even a wing. It's a guard with those 50 blocks, which is insanely impressive. And that just brings me to show you his stats. And one conversation I'm seeing go around a lot on Twitter right now is the talk for Derrick White in the most improved player conversation. Now, he is not, as far as I could tell, he's not on any type of boards, for the odds of winning most improved. He's just not there because, you look at the stat jump, it's not that insane. He jumped 4 minutes a game. His efficiency is basically the same. He's shooting identically from the field, but his 3-point percentage has gone up from 38 to 40% with 2 more attempts a game. That is bananas. That is ridiculous that Derrick White is now a 40% three-point shooter. But he's up to 16 points a game with 5 assists. He's putting up career numbers across the board in every major statistic, basically. And still only 1.6 turnovers a game, despite his usage rate being higher than basically ever in his career, except maybe that 2020-2021 season with the Spurs where he was playing about 30 minutes a game, taking a few more shots. But his efficiency is amazing. He's still an all-defense caliber player. And what do you guys think? Do you think Derrick White could have conversation in the most improved player territory? Now I'm seeing, Raptors fans will say Scotty Barnes, and you'll see, well, I see some Alperen Şengün, I see some Jaylen Williams, some people talking about him. There's a lot of guys that could be on the most improved ladder, and a lot of guys I didn't even mention. I guess Tyrese Maxey, right, is in there as well. There's so many really, really good players, but honestly, Derrick White is like a subtle improvement, right? But again, he just kind of gets a little bit slept on because his numbers don't jump off the page at you. But when you watch him play, you realize how clutch he is, how key he is to this team. Just look at the game winner from last year in the playoffs. Like, this guy is something special. He, I would say, is the glue to this Celtics team. 40% from 3 from Derrick White is absolutely bananas, while also being an elite defender and a very good passer in his own right. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Derrick White, one of the more underrated players in the NBA somehow still. Even though Celtics fans give him the props all the time, I still see other teams fans saying, well, he's not that special, is he? And they shut him down. Amazing stuff from Derrick White. Absolutely love to see it. And I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on maybe him, maybe even entering the edge of the MIP conversation. But that'll do it for this episode of Celtics Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. We're pushing for 5,000 subs. I know we can do it, and I know you guys can help us reach that goal. I've been your host, Josh Gosse. I'll catch you in the next one.